The big question is, will the Rana revelations on India Today compel Pakistan to act, or is there fear that elements like Hafiz Mohammed Saeed and Masood Azhar are even more powerful than the Pakistani state? Or are, if I may, is the Pakistani state so powerful that, God forbid, if Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has spoken out of line, he may end up meeting his grandfather Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's fate or his mother Benazir Bhutto's fate? That's that big question, because many say that if he's speaking on the instructions of the Pakistan Army, it's okay. If he isn't, he could be in trouble. Joining me on this special broadcast, and my proud privilege to welcome on the show former Indian Navy Marine Commando, Marcos team member Praveen Teotia. Praveen Teotia is the author of 2611 Braveheart, My Encounter with Terrorists That Night. He saved 170 lives at the Taj Hotel and was awarded a Shaurya Chakra for gallantry, for exceptional bravery in the line of fire. He took 4 bullets of these Pakistani terrorists. He fired back, saved 150 plus lives. Sandeep Unnithan, senior journalist and author of the book Black Tornado on 2611 Mumbai terror attacks. Sushant Sareen is senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. P.K. Jain is former additional director general, special operations of the Maharashtra Police. And in a moment from now, we'll be joined by Michael Kugelman, senior fellow, Asia Pacific Foundation. I want to begin, Sandeep, since you've authored a book, you and I covered 2611. Praveen Teotia was there fighting terrorists inside the Taj Hotel. Explosive revelations, but the big advantage is, unlike source-based information or second-hand information, this is coming straight from the mouth of the conspirator, not through sources, and can be admissible as evidence in a court of law, implicates the Pakistani state directly.
Absolutely, Gaurav. In fact, 2611 was nothing but a Pakistan military assault on Mumbai, disguised as a lashkar-e-taiba attack. Now, the LET has been carrying small hit-and-run attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, but the scale, the complexity of 2611, the kind of research that they did, creating spy networks within India, creating that fake travel agency, all of this points to the Pakistan Army's hand in this, the Pakistan Army and the ISI. And, we've always been led to believe, Gaurav, that this was Lashkar-e-Taiba. But all along, we've known now, in the last couple of years, after these new revelations, that this was actually a Pakistan Army ISI plot. And the idea, Gaurav, if you look at it, it was mainly to ensure that these 10 terrorists would do mission accomplished in Mumbai, kill maximum number of Mumbaikars, and then their bodies would be found. They would have red threads on their hands, and they would have identity cards with Hindu names on it. For instance, Ajmal Kasab's name was Samir Dinesh Chaudhary. He had an ID card with Samir Dinesh Chaudhary on it, and he was supposed to be a college student from Hyderabad. Now, the idea was that they wanted to cut all involvement with Pakistan by producing those 10 bodies. They wanted it to make it look like Indians had carried out this attack on Indians, Hindu terrorists. That was the whole conspiracy that the ISI had planned to do. And that was unraveled only because of 2 elements, Gaurav. The first was Tukaram Omble, that gallant Mumbai police officer who grappled with Ajmal Kasab, caught him alive. And the second biggest act, Gaurav, that night on 2611 was Praveen Teotia and the Marine Commandos who rushed into the rescue, and they saved those 170 hotel guests inside the Taj, without their intervention that night, Gaurav, you would have been looking at a death toll in the high hundreds. It would have been something like 200-300 Mumbaikars who would have been mercilessly killed, and all we would have had were 10 bodies, dumb bodies, with all of these fake, ID cards and red threads and all that. And we would have been led to believe this was a major Hindu terror attack on India. That was the Pakistan Army's conspiracy. And now that is being unraveled 17 years after 2611 by Tahawur Hussain Rana's admissions in custody, Gaurav.
That's a very big point that you make. And before I bring in Praveen Teotia into this conversation, Sushant Sareen, that thread that Sandeep that Sandeep raised. So 10 Pakistani terrorists trained by Lashkar-e-Taiba, trained by Pakistan Army and Navy, they would have been killed, all wearing that sacred kalava. Sushant Sareen, when I was covering the Tahawur Hussain Rana and David Coleman Headley trial in that Chicago federal court, David Coleman Headley gave details how he bought kalava from the Siddhivinayak temple. So way back, they had a plan that they will carry out a terror attack and blame it on Hindu terror. And you had an ecosystem in our country that was anyways crying about Hindu terror or floating that bogey of Hindu terror. So Rana revelations, while it reveals the Pakistani hand, Sushant Sareen, in your appreciation, will it reveal the sleeper cells within, including elements who then spread that Hindu terror bogey?
Yeah, look, Gaurav, frankly speaking, we all know who those people are. They were holding press conferences and book launches to propagate the Hindu terror theory, right? That included very senior members of the Congress party, noted filmmakers, journalists, and what have you, right? Supposedly very respected people of society. They were flogging that line. Now, if I was in government, I would certainly look askance and try and interrogate them to find out whether there was some kind of a linkage between them and some other characters, knowingly or unknowingly, to propagate this kind of a theory. And this happened after 26/11, after Kasab had been caught, after all of that, right? But look, I think what is important is that once you get hold of one of the principal characters in that entire 26/11 conspiracy, you are able to interrogate him. There are new revelations which are coming out which we were not even aware of. As far as I remember, we were under the impression that Rana had left a few days before the 26/11 attacks had taken place. Now it transpires that he was very much here while these attacks were taking place. So quite clearly, the man was very deeply embedded in this entire conspiracy, and he knows a lot more than what we know, because whatever the government has been able to so far ferret out is essentially from the investigation of Ajmal Kasab, who was not a planner. He was just a foot soldier, right? So he was not the guy who would know everything which happened. Who were the guys involved? Who were the guys who planned? Now, yes, investigations have revealed a lot of names. We have got a lot of information, but I think a lot of those that strands of information which we have can be tied together with the interrogation of Tahavur Rana. So I think it's very clear that the kind of revelations which are going to come out will be extremely useful in at least narrowing down on who were the people involved, how this whole conspiracy was hatched, and what needs to be done now.
Mr. Jain, is 17 years too late? 17 years later, perpetrators both in Pakistan and those who may have colluded in India, have they still been at large? And not just those who were propagating that bogey of Hindu terror, but sleeper cells of lashkar-e-taiba in our country. Because when I was in Chicago covering that case, David Coleman Headley and Tahir Hussain Rana, there were details of people that met in Mumbai, there were details of people that met in Kochi, people that met in Delhi, and they wanted to travel even to Jammu and Kashmir, sir.
Thank you very much, Gaurav, for having me here. Yes, it's a fact. See, the information that the Indian agencies had been able to gather was passed on to the US. It was given to Pakistan. Pakistan, as usual, would not accept it. They would not value any evidence. I mean, they're so shameless. This Bhutto Zardari you just now mentioned about is again talking the language of ifs and buts only. That if it happens, India is not cooperating. India has not been able to put up a case. If they do this. So this is all what is you are expecting from Pakistan, and we've been doing it for decades. It's for the first time that a befitting reply has been given to them in the form of Operation Sindoor, and much before that, in the form of the strikes that we had. So now coming to Tahavur Rana and James Headley, see, these two persons were very much in the, they were the team which planned, recceed, identified individuals, operated from Mumbai predominantly for this particular attack in Mumbai. And the information was so, it was in our investigation, as well as the investigation which was carried out by the US, it was more than clear that these two persons were involved, and that's why they were incarcerated there. And finally, now we've been able to lay hands on them. The facts and details are known to us all. Sandeep has just now specified everything. Mr. Sareen has specified the things further. Now, what happens now is that in the investigation that has happened till now, even today, he's silent about certain aspects of the entire investigation of certain
For
incidents.
example?
So, See, he was asked about the role of the Pakistani army. He has named 2, 3 persons who are known to the Indians, to the Indian investigating agencies. He's not come out with much further details on that. He has not come out with the details of the person whom he met, with who received him at the airport, with whom he wrecked Mumbai. There are a number of details that he has yet to give out. I mean, the guy is extremely shrewd. He has been handling this kind of intelligence operations not only in Afghanistan but also in the Europe as well as in the US. So you don't expect him to give out the details so easily. So I think it will take a lot of effort on the part of the investigating agencies even today to get further information from this character. I mean, we have to get that information to see.
Okay.
It is a known fact now that the Pakistan army is involved, ISI is involved, everything is known, but they are so shameless, they'll never accept it. Now today,
I completely agree they're shameless, but investigation 17 years later, will they reveal anything? Praveen Tewatia ji, आपने तो अपना खून बहाया 26/11 के दौरान मरीन कमांडोज की टीम जब ताज होटल गई, आपने 170 लोगों की जान बचाई, आपको 4 गोलियां भी लगी, लेकिन आपको लगता है तहव्वुर हुसैन राणा का जब इंटेरोगेशन हो रहा है उससे कुछ नया निकलेगा और पाकिस्तान कुछ कार्रवाई करेगा, या फिर जैसा जैन साहब कह रहे थे कि ऑपरेशन सिंदूर और इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी यही एक भाषा है जो पाकिस्तान समझता है?
एक्चुअली इसमें बहुत कुछ और निकलने वाला है। अगर आप मेरे से पूछिए तो मेरे से बहुत लोगों ने पूछा, तो मैंने जैसे अभी उन्नीथन जी ने बताया कि 10 टेररिस्ट थे। एक्चुअल में अगर आप देखोगे मेरी नज़र से तो 10 नहीं थे, वो 5 बड्डी पेयर थे। और बड्डी पेयर सिर्फ और सिर्फ स्पेशल फोर्सेस में ही काम करते हैं। नॉर्मल आर्मी में ये पैटर्न नहीं होता है। जो उनको पैटर्न था, पैटर्न डायरेक्टली इंडिकेट करता है कि उनको ट्रेंड जो किया गया है वो स्पेशल फोर्सेस के द्वारा ट्रेन किया गया। नॉर्मल आपको इस तरह से जितने भी अटैक आप वर्ल्ड वाइड देखोगे इस तरह के टेररिस्ट अटैक नहीं मिलते हैं। आप मुंबई का जो टेररिस्ट अटैक है यहाँ पर पूरा का पूरा आप प्लान देखिए, हर जगह पर आपको बड़ी पेयर में आपको मूवमेंट मिलेगा। जब बड़ी पेयर में मूवमेंट होता है तो आप बहुत ही ज़्यादा खतरनाक मोड पर होते हो, क्योंकि अगर एक बंदा फायरिंग कर रहा है तो दूसरा बंदा उसकी सेफ्टी के लिए चारों तरफ से मूवमेंट कर सकता है। तो जो पूरी मूवमेंट है वो जो सिखाई जाती है सिर्फ और सिर्फ स्पेशल फोर्सेस में ही सिखाई जाती है और कहीं नहीं सिखाई जाती। तो
कमांडो ऑपरेशन बिल्कुल था आपकी दृष्टि में?
एग्जैक्टली ये आप नॉर्मल आर्मी अटैक या फिर टेररिस्ट अटैक नहीं है ये। इसमें कहीं ना कहीं SSG जो स्पेशल सर्विस ग्रुप है पाकिस्तान का और स्पेशल सर्विस ग्रुप SSGN जो नेवी का है, क्योंकि उनकी जो ट्रेनिंग है नेवी की भी ट्रेनिंग हुई है उसमें, क्योंकि उनको बोर्ड के द्वारा
सिंध में हुई थी।
हाँ, तो उनको जो ट्रेनिंग है वो दोनों ही तरह से ट्रेनिंग दी गई है, चाहे मैप रीडिंग की है, चाहे वो सैटेलाइट उनका कम्युनिकेशन का है। इसके अलावा वो जो होटल ताज का जो डोम है उसको गिराने की उनकी पूरी कोशिश रही। उसके बाद जब लोग चैम्बर हॉल के अंदर फंस गए तब हमारे एक पत्रकार महोदय ने, एक जो मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट थे उनसे उनकी बात हुई, जो कि लाइव टेलीकास्ट चल रहा था। तो उनसे जब बात हुई तो उन्होंने, जो मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट थे उन्होंने बताया कि 100+ लोग चैम्बर हॉल में फंसे हुए हैं। तो उन्होंने, जो उनके हैंडलर थे कराची में बैठे हुए, तो उन्होंने सैटेलाइट पर जो कम्युनिकेशन था उनको बताया कि इस टारगेट को छोड़ो, नया टारगेट आपको मिल गया है, वहाँ पर जाकर आप हॉस्टेज सिचुएशन क्रिएट करो। तो अगर वहाँ पर हॉस्टेज सिचुएशन क्रिएट होती है तो ये चेचनिया वाला हाल हमारा हो जाता। अगर हमारी टीम वहाँ पर 1 मिनट भी डिले हो जाती तो इस देश को शर्मसार होना पड़ता,
और ज्यादा शर्मसार होना पड़ता। बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं सुशांत सरीन। In Thatta Sindh, the casings of the bullets that were found in Pakistan, they matched with the casings of ammunition that was found in Mumbai. So there is clear evidence that these terrorists were Pakistani. They were trained by Pakistani Navy and Pakistani Army and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Tariq Khosa of FIA carried out his own investigation. A Pakistani officer carried out investigation. And yet no action was taken. So is the unknown gunman way or Operation Sindoor the only way forward for justice in your appreciation?
I don't see what other way can be, because you're not dealing with a normal civilized state on your border. You're dealing with a jihadist state which is completely demented, right? Now, the only way you can deal with them is to speak to them in the language they understand. Your diplomacy, your all these nice things which happen, is not going to work. So I think one is that you put the fear of God in these fellows, that we are going to be coming for you no matter what, whether through conventional, sub-conventional means or non-traditional means like the Indus Waters Treaty. We are going to punish you, and we are going to punish you till you don't back down from what you've been doing. Secondly, I think, you talk about Tariq Khosa and the investigations inside Pakistan. They've actually cracked the case. The problem was that not a single person in Pakistan, this pup, Bilawal Bhutto, who has been giving interviews to useful idiots in the international media and, taking them for a ride, somebody should ask him that under his father's government, that entire case had been broken open, right? You mentioned Tariq Khosa, who's written about it also. But not a single person has been prosecuted or punished on that particular case. Why? The other thing is that people who one, he was lying that he doesn't know where Masood Azhar is. Second, on Hafiz Saeed, he says, no, he's very much in prison. But Hafiz Saeed has not been punished for 2611. He has been punished with some cock and bull charges because they had to satisfy FATF. Right? Not, something, Gaurav, even the case documents under which these men have been prosecuted and punished, according to the Pakistanis, are not available in the public domain. So nobody really knows what they've been even punished for. But Bilawal claims that 33 years he's in prison. Now, another fact, which is very interesting. Shortly before 2611, Asif Ali Zardari had spoken to another useful idiot in the Indian media and said something about, no first use
No
between
nuclear.
India and Pakistan, and Pakistan will also do this. 2
Yes.
weeks later, 2611 happens. Now, Bilawal has shot his mouth off. Not that Bilawal counts for anything. Frankly, Bilawal is a public school, English-speaking, educated Hafiz Saeed, right? But the point is, he has said something, and what is likely, I don't know what is going to happen to him, because already there is some rumors flying around that the Pakistan People's Party and their president and, their participation in the government is now going to be in jeopardy or could be in jeopardy going forward. So we don't know what's going to happen now that this guy has shot his mouth off. But remember one thing, at the end of the day, he's a powerless puppet who doesn't control anything in Pakistan. So anything he says is not even worth the paper it is written on.
So, Mr. Jain, is that also your appreciation, since you mentioned the Indus Waters Treaty, holding it in abeyance, Operation Sindoor targeting Muridke and Bahawalpur and, 7 other terrorist launch pads, the 11 air bases that were targeted, and the unknown gunmen in Pakistan. Pakistanis themselves are killing these terrorists. Is that the only way forward? What is the use of interrogating a Tahavur Hussain Rana or a David Coleman Headley? Unless you also believe that the enemies within, jo hamari asteen mein saap hai, those who live in India and advocate Pakistan's case or openly work for Pakistan, those elements can also be caught.
There's no dearth of Asteen ka Saap in India. People have been speaking, they have been acting against this country, they've been acting against our integrity, national unity. So all those things are accepted facts of life. Our agencies are doing a marvelous job in cracking these capsule modules, hidden modules, everything. They've been doing wonders. In fact, for every small incident that takes place today, 1,000 incidents have been prevented by these agencies. Now, coming to Pakistan, Pakistan only understands the language of violence. I do not, till now, India was always blackmailed into the use of nuclear weapons by Pakistan. That was the threat always doled out. Fortunately, there's a government in the center now, which has not listened to this kind of a threat and who have acted. And Pakistan has been shown its place, and they've been scurrying for cover. This, as I said, Bilawal Bhutto is nothing but shooting his mouth off without knowing what he's speaking and without committing anything. He's, as I said in his statement, he's made a lot of ifs and buts. So, I mean, he only wants to bring India to the discussion table first. I mean, that is the credit he wants to take, that I brought India to the discussion table. They should act first and then approach India that we are handing over this particular terrorist. I can tell you for certain, Mr. Ujjwal Nikam was dealing with the Pakistani delegation which came to India post 2611. Everything that was possible was given to them, which was safely could be given to them. They were interested in more and more. They just wanted to know as to what kind of information, what kind of intelligence India is having. and they wanted to whatever they wanted to do with information.
That's a good point
so
you
that
make, sir.
I'm telling you
Sandeep.
one more thing. One more thing I would like to. Thuraya sets. They are being
Yeah.
used by these terrorists who came to Mumbai.
Yes.
And as you very rightly said just now, that it was being reported live. The handlers in Pakistan were seeing that live telecast, and they were instructing these people how to operate, what to do further. Like just now, I heard Mr. Tevitia speaking about it. Exactly
Yes.
the same thing happened. So they took advantage of every bit of information, even in a live, terror attack in India. So it was
True.
the complicity of the government and ISI and army is absolutely clear. It is only that they must be beaten to pulp. That is the only language Pakistan understands, and they will understand in future.
And that's exactly why this interrogation becomes very important, Sandeep, so that globally you can tell the world this is the evidence that FBI was able to gather. And in that Chicago courtroom, the Federal Bureau of Investigation gave details of the people that Tahawwur Hussain Rana was in touch with, people in Pakistan, incidentally, that David Coleman Headley was in touch with, from Ilyas Kashmiri to Sajid Mir to a couple of ISI majors. No action taken, no action. And perhaps what India needs to do now, Sandeep, each time that government of India says we did not target Pakistan military, we only targeted terrorists, like the government said, no more distinction of terrorists and Pakistan military. There's a terror attack, take them out.
Absolutely, Gaurav. There are so many unanswered questions even now after 17 years. For instance, where was the Home Secretary of India on the night of November 26, 2008? He was in Pakistan because there was a counter-terrorism meet that the Pakistan government had called for. And on that night, when he would have, he was the person who was supposed to take the call to send the NSG, he was taken away, he and the other members of the delegation, they were taken away to a place called Murree, that's outside of Islamabad, where there was no network. They were kept over there to ensure that they could not contact New Delhi and send, counter-terrorist forces. This is the kind of level of planning, the collusion of the state of Pakistan in 26/11, Gaurav. And the sad part is that 17 years later, we still don't have a report that goes into all our failings on that night. We have one Pradhan Committee report, where put together by an outstanding IPS officer, Mr. Balachandran. But again, he was only asked to look at the Mumbai police's failings, not the larger conspiracy, not the political failings, not this entire, Operation Mincemeat kind of thing of planting ID cards on dead bodies, all of these things. We still haven't got a comprehensive white paper on what happened in 26/11. The level of state collusion that took place, Gaurav, both on our side, the traitors within in our midst, and also in Pakistan, the civilians who participated in that, the military training that was given, as Praveen Teotia just mentioned, SSG Navy trained these 10 terrorists of the LET. We still don't have answers. We need that white paper now, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely. प्रवीण तेवता जी, एक सवाल मेरे मन में 26/11 से कौंध रहा है, क्योंकि मरीन कमांडोज हमारे बेस्ट होते हैं। 26/11 की रात मरीन कमांडोज ताज होटल के अंदर घुस चुके थे, आप गोलियां भी खा चुके थे और आप गोलियां मार भी रहे थे। फिर एकाएक मरीन कमांडोज को वापस बुला लिया गया कि एनएसजी दिल्ली से आएगी, फिर वो ऑपरेशन करेगी। वो 12 घंटे जो पूरी रात इन पाकिस्तानी आतंकवादियों को मिल गई, क्योंकि अगर आपने यानी मरीन कमांडोज ने उसी रात एक एक कमरे में घेर घेर कर इनको मारना शुरू किया होता तो ये 3 रात नहीं कर सकते थे पाकिस्तानी आतंकवादी। ये पहला सवाल मेरा है। और एक विश्वास नागरे पाटिल करके एक बड़े यंग एसीपी थे, एक वायरलेस कॉन्वर्सेशन उनका था, उन्होंने अपने बॉस हसन गफूर को, लेट हसन गफूर को उस समय बताया कि ये चारों आतंकवादी एक ही कमरे में घुसे हैं, मैं उस कमरे के अंदर ग्रेनेड फेंक देता हूं, चारों आतंकवादी मर जाएंगे, फायरिंग करेंगे। उनको वो आदेश कभी नहीं मिला। आपको ये लगता है कि अगर उस दिन मेरीन कमांडोज को बोला गया होता पूरे ताज में फैल जाओ, क्योंकि आपकी बड़ी टीम थी, तो ये 166 जाने गई, उनमें से कई बच सकती थी?
एग्जैक्टली अगर मैं बात करूं तो जो स्टोरी है वो अधूरी है। 26/11 में जब मेरा एनकाउंटर उन चारों टेररिस्टों का एक ही रूम में हुआ, तो मैं अकेला था उस रूम के अंदर, हमारी पूरी टीम बाहर थी। जो हमारी टीम के जो लीडर थे, उन्होंने ताज के जो सिक्योरिटी मैनेजर थे सुनील गुड़ियादी, उनसे पूछा कि इस रूम का एंट्री और एग्जिट किधर है, ये एंट्री एग्जिट यही है या कुछ और भी है? तो जो ताज का जो सिक्योरिटी मैनेजर थे उन्होंने कहा कि यही एक दरवाज़ा है, एंट्री एग्जिट यही है, जबकि उसका एक और दरवाज़ा किचन में खुलता था। अगर वो हमारी टीम को बता देते कि एक और रास्ता है जो किचन में खुलता है और ओल्ड हेरिटेज विंग को वो रास्ता जाता है, तो वो हमारी पूरी टीम दूसरे एंड पर बैठ जाती, किचन में बैठ जाती और एक एक करके जो 3 बचे हुए टेररिस्ट थे उनको मार सकते थे।
बिल्कुल।
नेक्स्ट में एक और भी चीज़ मैं ऐड ऑन करना चाहता हूँ कि जब लास्ट मूवमेंट थी मेरे पास में, मैंने उन टेररिस्ट के ऊपर ग्रेनेड से हमला किया था, मैंने ग्रेनेड फेंका था। हाँ, मैं उस ग्रेनेड के हमले से मैं खुद मारा जाता, वो ग्रेनेड नहीं फटा, उस ग्रेनेड के ना फटने की वजह से वो तीनों टेररिस्ट, एक टेररिस्ट मेरी गोली से मारा गया था उस दिन, वो तीनों टेररिस्ट वहीं पर ढेर हो जाते और मैं भी उसमें शहीद हो जाता। ये जानते हुए मैंने ग्रेनेड फेंका था कि अब मेरे पास कोई ऑप्शंस नहीं है, तब मैंने ग्रेनेड
There
फेंका
are
था। अगर वो ग्रेनेड फट
many
जाता।
questions that remain unanswered, and I quickly want to cut across to the United States of America. Joining us on this special broadcast is Michael Kugelman, who's studied 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, and he's been studying India-Pakistan relations for a very long time. Michael Kugelman, your appreciation of the revelations that come from somebody like a David Coleman Headley in the Chicago Federal Court and Tahavur Hussain Rana to India's National Investigation Agency. Can India expect Pakistan to act, or will Pakistan continue to mislead and obfuscate but not take action against the perpetrators of 26/11?
Well, I mean, I think the question here is, could there be any factor at play that prompts Pakistan to change its long-standing position, which is, of course, to do relatively little in that regard. And in that sense, the recent comment by Bilal Bhutto is quite notable in the sense that he is suggesting that Pakistan would actually want to turn over Hafiz Saeed. And I think that some may simply scoff at that and say, well, that's simply meant to appeal to an audience in the US and elsewhere, and there might not be something to it. But I think it's pretty significant that he actually made that disclosure publicly, and at some risk. I mean, he's already been, of course, prompted that response from Hafiz Saeed's son. The political opposition in Pakistan has also gone after him. When it comes to these issues related to terrorism of any type in Pakistan, Bilal Bhutto, it's significant for him. We know what happened to his late mother. But getting to your question as to could things actually change now, it's very hard to say, particularly given the state of India's relations with Pakistan in light of Operation Sindoor, and given just how high tensions are at this point, given the messaging coming from New Delhi, suggests to me that it's very unlikely that now would be the time when Pakistan, and essentially its military, which is the one that calls the shots on these deals, would actually want to take a different approach. I simply think
And
that
in
these
your
types of
appreciation,
assets have never
is
been more
this
important.
is this an off-the-cuff remark by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari? Would he have the military's clearance on this, that, float this balloon, let's see if India comes to the talks table? And anyway, they have, for the past 3 decades plus, not taken action against Hafiz Saeed or Masood Azhar for either the parliament attack or 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks or a series of other terror attacks. It's just a trial balloon.
Right. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's we don't know what the circumstances of this Al Jazeera interview were. We don't know if he and his team had been told what the questions would be in advance and so on. So it's hard to say what the context was there. I mean, it is true that in the days since the ceasefire was announced, that Pakistani officials have been projecting this message that they would like to look toward the day when things could work better with India, somewhat of a different position from what you're hearing from the Indian side. And clearly, if Pakistan were actually to follow through on something like that, it would be, I think, a significant boost for the relationship. But I just think looking at the army chief and his perspective, including some of his most recent comments that he made about India, I just think, to me, it seems unlikely that you would actually have something like that happen at this point.
So why is it, in your appreciation, that Pakistan does not take action first, let's say against Hafiz Saeed or Masood Azhar, and then seek dialogue with India? Why is it only a promise or a glimmer, and we've seen this over decades, and then expect India to come to the talks table? Despite, now that India has burnt our fingers so many times, this establishment in India is unlikely to fall into this trap again.
Well, I mean, of course, the position, Pakistan's official position, is that it's essentially done all it needs to do. But clearly, there's a lot more work that needs to still be done. And I think that it comes down to that fundamental strategic calculation on the part of Pakistan, that these figures like Hafiz Saeed, like Masood Azhar, that they could serve. They have value for Pakistan. They provide Pakistan with something to counter India. I mean, that has long been the policy, or one of the many reasons why Pakistan has been reluctant to completely dismantle this terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan. Now, again, Pakistan's position is it doesn't necessarily know where Azhar is. It's a bit of a different approach than what we hear vis-a-vis Hafiz Saeed. Pakistan claims that Azhar is in Afghanistan now, that he's not even in Pakistan. But again, I just think that it's that tried and true policy on the part of Pakistan that you have to hold on to those assets that you feel have been helpful over the course of time. And indeed, it clearly, in my view, is a very outdated policy. It was always a very dangerous policy. We talk about this notion of Pakistan playing with fire when it retains these links to violent actors and terrorists. That at the end of the day, you never know what they could do. They could go against you and become anti-state terrorists. And there has been a precedent for that in Pakistan. But again, I just don't necessarily see things changing anytime soon in this regard.
And isn't that also your appreciation, Sushant Sareen, the manner in which this bogey or this trial balloon has been floated by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari? He's probably going to end up either like his mother or like his grandfather.
Look, in either case, I'm not going to shed any tears for him. So that's his funeral. He's welcome to it. Second, look, here is the thing. When they lie through their teeth and they say that they have no idea where Masood Azhar is, Masood Azhar attended the funeral prayers of his family members who were killed during Op Sindoor. For them to claim that they have no idea where the hell this guy is, come on, give me a break. Okay. Third, what Bilawal said, like I said, I don't take the guy seriously at all. He's worth nothing to nobody, right? He doesn't call the shots. Even when he was foreign minister, he didn't call the shots, right? He's just a guy with a nice clipped English accent to fool the Western audiences with. He speaks, that idiom. So he's a nice guy for that. But other than that, what he said in that particular interview, it was a bait at best. That will India
Bait.
bite? Because normally, people would have jumped at it in India, and the usual suspects would have made a big deal out of it. That there is a new talks offer coming, etc., etc. This time, everybody ignored it. So the bait failed, and if it wasn't a bait, it was virtue signaling at worst. Nothing more, nothing less. So I don't think we should take anything which Bilawal says seriously, or anything that any civilian in Pakistan says seriously. Anything even that a military guy says, we don't know whether that has any longevity in whatever they say. Bajwa was promising one thing, his successor completely changes the track. Before Bajwa, Kiani was saying something, his successor changes it. Musharraf said something, Kiani changed it. This is what the kind of beast we are dealing with. And I wouldn't even take a military guy when he makes an offer seriously, because I don't know that if tomorrow he's not in power, his
Yes.
successor will continue with that policy or will completely turn it on its head. And that's the track record.
Michael Kugelman, now that Operation Sindoor has happened, now that Indus Waters Treaty has been held in abeyance, now that there is there are these unknown gunmen who are floating around in Pakistan. Hafiz Saeed, a UN designated global terrorist, at one time was leading the Eid Namaz at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, and suddenly he's supposed to be in hiding. Is this change likely, in your appreciation, force a shift in Pakistan's stance, or will terror continue and Pakistan will see, let's see what India does next time? Because each time, 2016 surgical strikes, shallow raids, 2019 Balakot, one strike, 2025, you've had 9 terrorist camps and 11 air bases and several radar stations targeted. Each time, India's response has been more severe.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that this approach that India is taking now, post-Operation Sindoor, one that entails a series of punitive steps taken against Pakistan, non-military punitive steps, cutting, closing the border, suspending trade, the Indus Waters Treaty move. To me, it seems like an effort on the part of India to raise the cost to Pakistan of maintaining this policy toward terrorists. And indeed, I mean, the jury is out as to whether that would be effective or not. As you said, I mean, the pattern has been that what India has done to this point has not been sufficient, in that we continue to have these attacks, which, again, Pakistan's position is that Pakistan has no link to these attacks. But given the
But does
given the
America
history, it's
buy
impossible
this?
to discount
I want to
it.
understand from you. Does America buy this? Because America's lost soldiers, not just 2,500 plus soldiers in Afghanistan, but American civilians during 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Pakistan has been involved in terror in the United States of America. What do you make of America's policy with a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror?
I think that the U.S. side absolutely sympathizes with and supports India's position about Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. I think in the case of the most recent attacks, and the Pahalgam attack, there I think that the U.S. position is more okay. Well, we have to look at the past legacy and the track record of Pakistan, in the sense that there has not been any evidence put out there by India, at least publicly, linking Pakistan to the Pahalgam attack. But no, I think that, broadly speaking, and there's multi-partisan support for this in the U.S., that there is a view that India is onto something, and that what it says about Pakistan-sponsored terrorism is something that deserves considerable, continued attention. But I would say this, that I think it's when you draw that link, when you make clear that this Pakistan-sponsored terrorism has not only threatened Americans, but also killed Americans. In the case of the Mumbai attack that you mentioned, that I think really gets the attention of this administration, right? And I think that was important when the Indian delegation was in Washington, that at some point, some member of the delegation did make that link. Memories are short, unfortunately. I think it's important to make that message to an American audience.
Because globally, Pakistan should be isolated, Sushant Sareen. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be happening. Pakistan's been able to play both the United States and China. The question remains, how long, Sushant Sareen? Last 30 seconds on this part of the show.
No, look, I think it depends on how they make themselves useful for both China as well as the United States. We know how they are useful for China, because this is a dog that keeps snapping at India's heel. So yes, the Chinese want that. For the Americans, it's mostly transactional, it's short term. Maybe Donald Trump thinks that there's some huge treasure of,
Rare earths.
rare earths and other minerals which is waiting to be exploited. Every time the Pakistanis announce these kind of treasure troves, they turn out to be duds. I'm sure this one is going to be yet another one. But if Trump wants to, throw the dice on that one, he's most welcome to it. The second thing could be a geographical proximity to places like Iran, but we don't even know what the American policy is going to be on Iran. We don't know what the American policy is going to be on any country in the world. The American president is just threatening everybody left, right, and center. It reminds you of some of those old parables where, there is this king who says, okay, this guy says this, off with his head. This guy says something else, off with his head. This guy says something else, impose a tariff on him. So if that is the kind of capricious foreign policy that the United States is now infamous for, you don't know what they are going to find useful and what they are not going to find useful in the future.
प्रवीण तेवतिया जी, जो आखिरी 30 सेकंड मेरे पास हैं, अब एक ही बात पाकिस्तान समझता है, अमन की आशा नहीं, केवल ब्रह्मोस की भाषा. क्या ये आपका आकलन है?
इनके जितने भी आर्मी के इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं उनके ऊपर हमको बहुत ज़्यादा नज़र रखने की ज़रूरत है, और जहाँ जहाँ इनके ट्रेनिंग सेंटर्स हैं उनको हमको टारगेट करके रखना चाहिए, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान प्रॉक्सी वार में एक्सपर्ट हो चुका है और अमेरिका बहुत ज़्यादा इनको सपोर्ट करता है, चाइना बहुत ज़्यादा सपोर्ट कर रहा है, तो बफर स्टेट के रूप में है, उनका खुद का कोई अस्तित्व नहीं है. तो हमको बचने के लिए सारी चीज़ों को, अपना जो एग्रेशन रूप है वो हमको तैयार रखना चाहिए, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान कभी नहीं सुधरने वाला है और ना ही हमको इस तरह की सोचना चाहिए. ये सोच से परे जा चुका है.
Pakistan will never improve. That appears to be the conclusion of almost all my guests, Michael Kugelman, Sushant Sareen, Sandeep Unnithan, and Praveen Teotia, for joining me here on this India First special broadcast. Many thanks. We'll be tracking the story very closely. All the revelations that are made, facts that emerge, and remains to be seen if Pakistan will act, or the only language that Pakistan understands is the Brahmos ki bhasha and not Aman ki asha.